time of the season now where I have to think about servicing the engine. So I went to the Volvo spare parts department and bought these. This is obviously some oil. We've got an oil filter. We've got a coarse fuel filter. That's a 10 micron one. That's the pre-filter. And then they gave me this one for the fine filter. And I did query it at the time. I said, well, that's a bit big, bigger than the one that's on the boat. And they said, well, that's the latest replacement. So here's the existing fuel filter, which is a Bosch device. This was given to me by the Volvo Penta people last year, and this is the filter that they've given me to replace it. And as you can see, it's just too big. It will not fit underneath it. The other thing is I've got a new raw water impeller kit, and I'm going to replace that as well. I do it every year though. They probably will go several years. Last things, I've got a fan belt, which I again replace every year. I've got quite a lot of them half worn, so if one does break, I've got lots of spares. The engine service breaks down into 4 areas. One is fuel, 2 filters to change and then bleed the air from the system. Number 2 is lubrication, replace the oil and the oil filter. Number 3 is the cooling system, clean the raw water strainer and replace the raw water pump impeller. 4 is part of the cooling system. It's to replace the fan belt, which turns the freshwater coolant pump and also the alternator. I have a problem with the belt tensioner, so that needs investigating. Next up is to replace the pre-filter. That's this gadget down here. Below it is the glass container, so I can see no sign of any water down there or anything else. The fuel shut-off valve is very conveniently placed here, and that's turned off now. So I can take the filter out of here and drain everything down below. First things first, I'm going to cover this with some polythene and newspaper, so if I do spill anything it ends up on that rather than on the hull. 11mm spanner, and I'm just unscrewing this bolt at the top, and that should release. I'm doing this with one hand. There it goes. There's the fuel going into the pan underneath. There doesn't seem to be any way that you can avoid doing this. You've got to drain it out. I've got another container if this isn't big enough. There's the filter off, and the glass bowl in the pan of diesel. That had to be cleaned off. And there's the filter. It's quite clean actually. There's a few little bits of muck on there, but when I replaced it last year, I've no idea how long it had been in there, but it was full of all sorts of crud. So I'm very pleased. After a season, there's just almost nothing there at all, so that's great. There are a variety of O-rings to replace. The first one is the base of the filter, where there's a drain plug, which is what I should have undone before, instead of undoing the top of the filter. I'd forgotten about this. Is a little drain plug at the bottom. Anyway, put the new washer on that and screw that in tight. And there are 3 of these rubber gaskets, washers, whatever you want to call them. One of them's slightly larger, and the slightly larger one goes at the top of the whole assembly. Okay, we put one of these little washers, rubber doohickeys, in the base assembly, and the glass jar with a hole in the bottom, which I've cleaned out. There's very little in it, so I'm very pleased about that. That drops in over the top. And then there's a little lip in here, little lip, and I'm just going to put another washer in there. Got the new fuel filter, and that goes in on top of there like so. It just fits. nicely in there, and then this bigger washer will actually go on top of there and fit in the flange in the bit that we're going to screw it on. So come with me now and we'll try and assemble this. It's not the easiest job, that's for sure. Right, next job is to assemble all this again. The big problem is getting this to stay underneath there. I think we're there. I've assembled the filter, and now that should just go underneath there. And this bolt, with a bit of luck, yep, that's going. There we go. Just tighten it up. I've made sure that the drain plug is at the front, so that if I need to drain it at any time, it's over the front and clear. And I'm just tightening this up. Right. Hopefully that's okay. We'll turn the diesel on and see what happens. Nothing at the moment. It's probably because I need to loosen the bleed screw here. The next job is to replace the fine filter, which is this one here, and that just unscrews off. So we're going to put my pan underneath there to catch the drips, and I've got a remover to grab hold of it, and we'll take that away. Got the tool on, and I should be able to now just unscrew that by hand. Right, I've got the replacement filter on, tightened it up hand tight. You don't need the tool to do that. And now I've turned the diesel on, and the next job is to bleed the air out of the system in here. I put this plastic dish underneath to catch any diesel, because there will be some, and here we go. I'm using the lift pump down the side here to pump diesel up there. Mostly it will come by gravity. Now my diesel tank is above the engine, so it'll come by gravity, but this helps to speed up the process. We're almost there, I think. There's almost no, oh, there's some bubbles again. There we go, no more bubbles, and I'm just tightening up the bleed nut at the top there. A little bit of got a little bit of diesel to collect it in the plastic container underneath. Next job is to try and start the engine, and then I can get it nice and hot before I extract the oil. Well, the engine's nice and warm now, so the next job is to extract the oil, and we use this wondrous gadget. It's a big plastic container with a vacuum pump on the top. So when you pump this up and down, it puts a vacuum in here which sucks through a pipe attached to there, and we're going to poke that where the dipstick goes. Got to be careful not to push too much in, otherwise it bends back on itself and you don't get all the oil. But once you've got the vacuum going by pumping the handle, then it pretty much does it all by itself. There's the end of the pipe in the dipstick hole. It's a bit fiddly to get it in there because there's a bit of a ledge, but once it's in, then it's okay. And we're now pumping out the black oil into the container. Quite a slow process this is really. All that oil has to go down quite a narrow gauge pipe that goes down the. But we're getting there. There's a bit in the bottle now. Well, the oil's out. There's about 4 litres there in the bottom of the vacuum container. I've got the hose hanging up at the moment to try and drain a bit of the oil out a bit before I disconnect it. That's the big problem with it, is you end up spilling oil everywhere. Another really good thing about this sucking device is that now the old oil's in there, I can decant it through this outlet here and pour it into the back into the empty oil container. Next job is to change the oil filter. I've taken the belt off. There's a belt that goes round this pulley across there and down, and it sort of gets in the way, and I'm going to replace it anyway, so I've taken that off, and I've got this gadget to unscrew the oil filter. I've got another oil filter here ready to go in place pretty quickly. Last time I did this I lost very little oil at all. Despite the fact that you put this on finger tight, it's surprising how stiff they get after they've been on for a while. Anyway, this is coming off now, and without these, no hope at all. Even with them it's difficult. Here we go. That might well be finger tight now. Yeah, it is. Here it comes. Yeah, just a little bit of oil there, but nothing serious. Bang the other one on quickly. There we go. Job done. Wish everything was as easy as that. Now we've got to put the fresh oil back in again. The oil filler cap is just here. Undo that. And we're going to pour oil in that hole there. I've used the top of a water bottle, just chopped it off as a funnel, and it sort of fits in there quite tightly. So hopefully that will mean less oil being dripped around the place. We just get it in a good place. So here goes the oil. The top of the water bottle funnel for the oil worked absolutely brilliantly, and haven't spilt a drop. It's full up now, up to the maximum level on the dipstick. It might need a little bit more, but until I run the engine and put some oil through the oil filter, that might use a bit, but so I'll leave it for the time being. Here's the seawater seacock, which I'm going to turn off first of all. That stops any seawater going into the cooling system. The pipe goes up here, and then it goes to the strainer, which is here. I'm going to take the lid of the strainer off and check for any fouling in there. You don't want to do this until you've turned the seacock off, because otherwise lots of water comes out. That's the voice of experience. So we need to take the top off, and inside is a little pad that comes out, and there's the strainer itself. We've got some weed and also some creepy crawly things, so I'm just going to wash that out and clean the inside of the bowl as well. That's the strainer cleaned out. I'm just going to pop it back into the place here. There's a couple of guides which make sure you've got the filter in the right place. Push that down. There's a cap that goes on the top, and then the screw top on top of that. First job done. Let's have a look at the engine now then. This is the seawater pump down there. That's where the impeller goes. It takes the water from the strainer and pumps it up this pipe here off to the heat exchanger. My problem is that because this gap here is quite small, these screws, which were normally operated by an Allen key, have to be done with a little spanner. So I'll go and get my spanner and carefully take this off. It's more than a bit fiddly getting this plate off, and so I put a tray down below. I don't know if you can see that, a grey tray, a plastic tray. If I drop a screw, it'll end up there rather than in the bilge. Right, so I've got the plate off, and I'll need to clean that up before it goes back on again. And you can now see the impeller down in there, in the housing. I'm going to take a photograph of that with my mobile phone, because it has to go in a particular way. It gets screwed up so that as it goes round and round, it does its job, and I couldn't remember which way it went last time. I spent ages trying to work it out. So I'm going to take a photograph this time, and then I'll be able to get the other one back in. Next job is to remove this. There's supposed to be a gasket there. Oh, what's happened to that? Oh, it's a very, very thin paper one. Here it comes up. And just taking this this paper gasket off. There it comes, and that will be replaced. Getting the impeller out is no mean feat. You've got to do a lot of pulling and pushing and stuff, and eventually it comes out. Next job is to clean the inside of the pump and make sure there's no muck getting in anywhere. A little bit difficult to get to, as you can see, so it's really a shame that this bit of wood's here, because it would be so much easier if that was clear, but it isn't, so you just got to plod on and hope for the best. I'm just cleaning the back plate now. As you can see, it's got a little bit of corrosion here and there. Nothing complicated about it. I'm just using a surface cleaner and one of these gadgets. This is just abrasive enough to sort of get rid of the stuff, but it won't cause any damage to the actual plate. So that'll be nice and clean, and we'll give a better seal with the gasket so it won't leak. There, that's reasonably clean now and feels very smooth. The thing to note is that the holes in the plate are not evenly spaced, so the plate will only go back in the correct position. So this area here will match the insert in the pump body, and a similar shape on the gasket. This might be a bit tricky to spot, but there's the insert just in there, look. That's what makes it work. And that's why the impeller is made of rubber, so it'll mould around that. Along with the kit, with the new impeller and a gasket, you also get a little sachet of impeller lubricant, which is actually glycerin. So we need to apply that to the impeller and also to the housing. The reason for this is that when you start the engine up, this impeller and the pump body is going to be dry. It's normally water lubricated, so the glycerine lubricates it for the few minutes until the water gets through, and it can then pump the water and be water lubricated. So it's just an interim measure, really. So we're going to put that on. This stuff's not dangerous at all. Glycerin is quite innocuous. So we squirt a bit of that in there, look, and then I can wipe it round. Just make sure everything's covered. And I'm going to do the same in the pump body. Well, I've managed to get the impeller in, well greased up, with the vanes in the right direction for the rotation. And I've stuck the paper gasket onto the backing plate with a bit of the impeller lubricant. Hopefully that'll help to align the whole lot up. So here we go, and I'll screw it back in place. Well, there's the plate screwed back on again. Difficult job, simply because it's difficult to get to. I've just turned the water back on again at the stopcock, and I'm just looking now to see whether there's any any drips. Looks pretty good at the moment. The last thing to do is to replace the belt that drives the freshwater pump and the alternator. Like a lot of engines, you tension the belt by rotating the alternator and locking it into place with a bolt that goes through the slot in this curved plate. Turns out the brass washer has dished, so was not laying flat against the adjusting slot. I cleaned it all up and turned the washer over, and it now all works fine. Okay, so far so good. Let's start the engine again, and then we can check for leaks and also for good coolant flow out the exhaust. Well, that's the engine running pretty consistently, and if we look over the stern, I can see plenty of water coming out of the exhaust, so the impeller's working that I put in as well. That looks really good. That's it then, engine serviced, ready for the next season. As you can see, even a Dumbo like me can do it, so I hope I've inspired some of you to give it a go. It really is a good idea to know as much as possible about your engine. Warning though, it's a messy business, especially the fuel filters and air bleeding. You need lots, and I mean lots, of cloth, paper towel and containers to catch drips, etc. You can never have too much. Thanks for watching. As always, please like and subscribe, and look out for future videos. You take care now.